Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Great. Good morning, everyone. You're most welcome to today's episode of the Market Snapshot. My name is Norbert Kiza, and I'll be taking you through what we can expect for today's jobs data. So, of course, today is NFP. Today is the first Friday of the month, and we are all looking forward to what's going to happen after the release of the NFP. So, we have quite a lot to go through. So, to start it off, I think it's best if we look at the calendar to get an understanding of what data is currently on the calendar and what you can expect that data to look like later in the day. So the general consensus that we are seeing for the NFP is that we're expecting that we're going to get a slightly higher reading for the month of May. And of course, as you can see here, we're also expecting to get that for the private non-farm payroll. The ADP data that we got, however, for the month of the ADP data that we got on Wednesday was actually much lower than the previous. But remember, that is just private. That does not take into account the public. So the non-farm payroll is a number that takes into account all the employment numbers for the entire country, excluding only the farming sector. So this is what we're having here. So I will try to look for the forecasts from the different banks, but unfortunately I was unable to find them. It's usually good to get an understanding essentially of what the banks are forecasting the numbers to look like. I tried to look for them online, but they are not available. So I think we can still proceed even without the forecast from the other banks to see what we can expect today. So, ladies and gentlemen, looking at the data, we are expecting a relatively higher reading, and this is what we're expecting. So, we should potentially see a reaction for the DXY if we get a number above 175K and also above 182K. We should take that as a bearish reaction for the DXY. Now, the other data that we'll also be focusing on will also be the participation rate. If we see a higher reading, then that will also be taken bullish for the DXY. Now, to put things into context and also to look at the Federal Reserve and how they are going to act, if we get higher readings for the non-farm payroll from the context of the Federal Reserve, they are going to take it that the economy is hot, or that rather the labor market is hot, and that there will not be any need for them to look into cutting rates, and that will bring in the higher for longer narrative. But if the numbers come out lower, it's going to bring a bigger case for them to cut rates soon, because it will show signs that the economy is starting to slow down. If you look at the PCE data that we got for this month, we saw that PCE had a bit of a slowdown. We also saw that also with the CPI data that we got for the month of April. So all the data sets are pointing towards some kind of a slowdown. The GDP data also slowed down. We saw GDP, the data that we got for GDP last week, we had a previous of 3.4%, then we had a reading of 1.3%. So I think all that has really been providing a case for a weaker DXY. Okay, so data after data, the DXY has been relatively weak. Now, NFP number for today might come in bullish for the dollar, but looking at all the different data sets we have been getting, right from GDP to PCE to CPI, all of those have been providing some kind of a weaker DXY. Now, does it mean that if we get a higher NFP reading today, it's possibly maybe going to wake up the DXY? It might. However, the reading needs to be really, really big. For instance, we need to get a number at least above 250K, close towards 300K. If we get a number within that range, then that will essentially show us that the Federal Reserve may have to pause on cutting rates too soon, and they may have to keep the rates high. So that will then result for us getting a weaker gold, a weaker EURUSD, a weaker GBPUSD, and of course a weaker indices. Yeah. So now let's go to the charts. We are going to start with the DXY. I want us to look at DXY on the higher time frame to get an understanding of how the price action for DXY has been over the course of the past months. Now, when you look at the DXY, you can see that from January we have actually been steadily rising. Okay, we've been steadily rising on the DXY, and we seem to have tapped out around these levels here of April. So if you guys recall the data that we got from April, remember that if we receive CPI and CPI, GDP, PCE, and of course NFP data for this month, which we're in, this is the month of June, we are getting data that was for actually the previous month, right? So in the month of April, that CPI, GDP data that we got, PCE data all showed that the US economy was still strong. But it's only this month of June especially, and also the data that we have also got in May, that has been pointing towards a weaker economy in the US. And I suspect that's why the DXY has been steadily declining. So you can see that on the chart for the DXY, we actually tapped out at 106. Okay, we created a double top there, and when we created a double top, we saw the market steadily declining. But we are on some kind of a rising trend, at least from the start of that, from December last year. So where is the DXY likely to go today? Now, I've just put my readings there to show you what is likely to happen in case we get any kinds of data. So if we get an NFP number above 200K, I'm expecting that is going to be relatively bullish, okay, for the DXY. Now, keep in perspective, guys, that if you look at the calendar, the forecast number is 182K, right? Now, if we get a reading of about 185K, 190K, 200K, okay, anywhere between 180 to 190, I don't think it's going to wake up the DXY. For the DXY to move, I think we really need to get a very strong reading, okay? You know, because it seems like because it's really been hit by all the different metrics we've been getting, from GDP to PCE to CPI, all those readings have supported a strong DXY. So you can see its bearish structure that it's been having all the way from April has actually been quite bearish, okay? And they're stuck in a box here. So I'm thinking if we get a reading above 200K, that's going to wake up the DXY, and we should see it steadily rising, potentially moving up, breaking this box here, and then maybe possibly then moving from here to take out this level here. Okay. Now, if that doesn't happen, if we get a reading below 175K, okay, it's going to press the DXY lower. And also, if the reading is not strong enough, 185K, 182K, if we get a reading of 178K, generally, if the reading is is relatively weak, then we should see the DXY potentially start its continuous downtrend, break through this structure here that has held. Okay, let me just see. Mic check 1 2. How is my audio? Hello? Mic check 1 2. Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right. So I think my audio is now fine. How about now? Can you hear me? Okay, let's proceed. Okay. All right, so let's proceed. So we were talking about the right? So like I indicated to you, okay. All right, guys, let's cross over to MT5. So for the MT5, we are starting with US30. We're going to start with the US30. Yeah, so we are going to start with the US30. All right, awesome. So let's proceed, guys. Everything fine. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Shiku. Awesome. All right, so for the US30, this is what we currently have. This is the setup that I have. So we were stuck in a bit of a barrier, guys. From when we bottomed on Friday last week. From Friday last week, we broke out of this range very nicely with a big impulsive candle to the upside, and now we are stuck in some kind of a choppy rising trend. Now I'm expecting that if the NFP today comes out bullish, then we're likely going to break 39,000 and move higher. Now, the Dow has been having a bit of a barrier around this level here, where it has failed to break. So you can see yesterday's price action, we created some kind of a double top. We had a very nice liquidity sweep to the upside, held 39,000 very nicely and came back down. We tried it again today during the before London open, and you can see we again failed. So there is some bit of hesitation there on the Dow Jones. But to put things into context, I want you guys to also notice that on the left side of the chart, we have a downtrend swing that the Dow Jones is currently in. So this downtrend swing has kept price action within this area here. And I'm expecting that if the NFP number is not strong enough, and again being a Friday, we should not see that much of a reaction from NFP on the Dow Jones, which will then warrant it to start steadily declining and coming back into this area here. So on one hand, for us to move higher, we need to break 39,000. If we do not break 39,000, the Dow Jones is not going to open up price action to the upside. So we need to wait and see how it evolves around that level, 39,000. Now, crossing over to the NASDAQ, you guys, I'm sure, must be aware that the NASDAQ has been trading absolutely bullish this week. And of course, this has been on the back of just NVIDIA. Only NVIDIA has been supporting a higher NASDAQ, guys. Only NVIDIA. NVIDIA was actually able to break $1,200 this week, which allowed the NASDAQ to actually break momentum and move higher. Now, at the moment, the NASDAQ also has a golden cross, which actually appeared on the H4 time frame. If we move this way, you'll be able to see it very clearly. So we have a golden cross on the NASDAQ that is supporting a much higher move to the upside. Now, for NFP today, one thing that is going to allow the NASDAQ to move higher is majorly going to be NVIDIA. If we get a weak NVIDIA today, then I think NASDAQ is going to tap out and start declining. But at the moment, NASDAQ is very, very bullish. And if we get a strong NVIDIA, and if we get strong NVIDIA price action after the US open today, I suspect that is going to support NVIDIA's, it's going to support the NASDAQ to move higher. Now, also, if we get a lower NFP reading, it's also going to be bullish for the NASDAQ, okay? Reason being, a lower NFP reading is going to indicate that the Federal Reserve is going to should cut rates soon, and that means that we then be able to see the NASDAQ breaking through here and possibly moving even as high as 19,202. So, the other thing also is NASDAQ has been able to break through key resistance points. So you can see on our fibs that we drew on the H4 time frame, NASDAQ is currently trading above this fib of 18,900. Okay, so this level of 18,900 is showing us that NASDAQ is trading quite bullish. But if today the tech stocks do not show us signs of bullish momentum, it means that the NASDAQ cannot move high. But if the momentum is strong, then the NASDAQ is definitely going to move to the upside. Now, I want you guys to also look at this channel that we have. This channel here is a channel that NASDAQ was previously in, but then it broke out of that channel and then began selling. But at the moment, it looks like it wants to get back into that channel. Okay, so we have this channel from around mid-May. Okay, we broke out of it around this level here. Okay, and then started selling. And it seems now the NASDAQ wants to get back into the channel and eventually start trading within there. So I do not know whether the price action is going to be enough for us to move up to that channel over the course of the next days. But for now, we need to see how the NASDAQ performs around these levels here. So either we break through that level and move higher, or if we fail to, then we are going to see a choppy NASDAQ that's going to take us, first of all, breaking below that barrier there, and then moving down below that 50-day moving average. Now, let's look at GBPUSD. So for GBPUSD, we are going to first start by looking at it on the daily, and then we shall move to the lower time frames. So on the daily, GBPUSD has bullish structure, okay? And you can see that we've been having a lot of setups for a buy with GBPUSD since, I think, mid-May, since beginning of May, okay? So you can see right now, GBPUSD is aiming for this area here, okay? And if we get a lower NFP reading today, a lower NFP reading is going to justify the Federal Reserve to cut rates soon, and that is going to allow GBPUSD to potentially move to the upside, possibly moving as high as 18,500. But at the moment, the key area where GBPUSD is likely to break is going to be this level here of 1.28103. So let's first move to the H4 time frame to see the price action much better. So on the H4 time frame, this is what GBPUSD is looking like. It's actually quite bullish, okay? The bullish structure is very, very strong on GBPUSD. And you can see that even after having a relatively strong PCE, we have seen GBPUSD failing to sell, okay? The setup we had on Wednesday was that of a descending wedge. GBPUSD broke through the descending wedge and has been showing us a lot of momentum, indicating that we are going to move higher. So what is going to allow us to see a higher GBPUSD today is going to be a lower NFP reading. If you get a reading below the previous of 175, and of course below the estimate of 182, we are going to see GBPUSD aiming for this supply zone, which it last achieved around the 8th of March. Okay? Remember, when you look at price action, you're supposed to look at it in sets of months. Since we're in the month of June, which is, you have April, May, yeah, those are about 3 months away from March, okay? We are going to have change of structure for many of these assets. So I believe GBPUSD is aiming for higher levels, and we are going to see that today. If we see a lower NFP reading, we shall see a nice setup for GBPUSD to move to the upside. Now, crossing over to EURUSD. EURUSD, if you recall, on the Wednesday snapshot, we had a descending condescending wedge, which is typically a setup for only buy opportunities. Okay, so that descending condescending wedge, we had a nice break out of it, and then we've had EURUSD's price action holding very nicely along this rising line. As you can see, we've had quite a number of liquidity sweeps taking it off that line and then moving higher. Okay, so the structure for GBPUSD and the bias for it is a buy, okay, and it is aiming for higher levels. So I'm thinking today's NFP, if we get a reading around 175, 165, it's going to allow EURUSD to break this level here around 1.09 and possibly move higher towards this channel we're at around the 15th of March. Okay, so EURUSD, its structure is quite bullish, guys, as you can see. Yesterday we had the ECB, but the ECB's comments were mostly hawkish. They have said that they have not yet done some of the things that are going to warrant rate cuts. So it was a really, really hawkish cut. They cut the rates, yes, but they are still not showing us signs that they want to go full in on that on the QE. So that is going to allow EURUSD to move higher. Now, going to gold, which I'm sure most of you are focusing on. Gold seems to have had a barrier around 2,388, okay? And as of, I don't know what has caused gold to sell like this today, but we're already seeing some signs of bearish momentum today. But the barrier for gold, guys, is that barrier of 2,388. Now, from the Wednesday snapshot, if you guys recall, we had a setup for an asymmetrical triangle on gold. We broke out of that asymmetrical triangle very nicely around that level of 2,353, and then gold started some kind of a bullish structure. Okay, it started moving higher, and it has formed temporary resistance around 2,388. So for us to see gold moving higher and possibly moving back to its supply zones up here, we need to see how gold manages that area there. Now, the other thing I also need to mention on gold is that gold's demand zone is actually not right here, okay? So for me to sell gold, I ideally would be looking to sell it when it gets into this demand area, which we drew this, I think, on Wednesday, the Wednesday snapshot. We say that if we are looking for areas to sell gold, it has to be within here. If gold fails to break price action, if gold fails to hold price action in this multi-day demand zone, it's going to warrant us seeing a relatively lower gold price and possibly even for gold to break below 2,300. So for me, I would be looking for buys, and of course, even for the earlier days, we are looking for buys for gold around. Just give it a few moments for it to load. Give it a few minutes for it to load. Yeah, so like we were saying, okay, this area, this was last NFP, okay, gold bought from this zone, okay, and then of course even April NFP, gold bought up from that zone, okay. So this zone here is actually a zone for demand for gold, okay. So if I'm looking for sales, I have to sell in the demand zone, right? And if I sell with a stop loss above it, so that in case gold sells below it, then I look for sales, okay? But you notice that anywhere within here and above that demand zone is not an area for it to sell gold, right? That's why you've seen how gold has been holding its price action quite nicely. Now, today, let's observe and see how gold performs at this zone. If we get a lower NFP reading, then I'm expecting gold to move higher and possibly break below above that zone and start moving towards 2,400. If the NFP reading is higher, then of course we are going to see gold possibly breaking below the 200-day moving average and moving towards this level of 2,322. So that's it, guys, for gold. We are going to briefly look now at USDCHF. So USDCHF has been in a steady declining channel, and I'm expecting that today we are going to see it move even lower on the back of a lower NFP reading. So I'm expecting today we see a lower USDCHF. It has already provided us a setup for a descending triangle. So I might be looking for a sell at the retest of my level there, possibly looking for us to sell it all the way back down to this area here. That is USDCHF. Now, I know that that USDCHF has also been trading quite bear bullish because of the rate cuts that the Swiss National Bank did. Okay, so the Swiss National Bank started cutting rates as early as March. So if you guys recall, in March we saw that nice push higher on USDCHF. I think it was a move of more than 100 pips. We saw a push all the way to 130 pips. So it tapped out here, and after tapping out, it then started declining. Okay, it was a nice sell there on USDCHF, and I'm expecting it today to sell even more. Okay, if we get a lower NFP reading, we are going to get a much bigger sell all the way to these levels here. So guys, I think that's it from me. It's a question time. If you have any questions for me, now may be the time for me to handle your questions. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Question time. US oil, US oil. Okay, so for US oil, I don't have it on MT5 here, but I have, I think, a chart open on Trading View. So I think let's just quickly look at the one on Trading View, since I'll be able to have a quick look at it from there. So just give me a moment for me to go to my Trading View chart. All right. Okay, so we're looking at US oil. So for US oil has been in a steady downtrend. We seem to have tapped out on oil at higher levels. And of course, the reason for this is majorly because of the slowdown. Okay, remember, oil is a demand commodity. When inflation is high, when people have money, when spending is high, oil typically tends to be bullish. But because we are seeing a slowdown not only in the US, but also in many economies, that is providing some downtrend for oil. So I'm expecting, if there's anyone who's trading oil, if you look at the technicals, most likely we are seeing some kind of bearish formation on it. So I haven't been trading oil or really doing analysis on it, but just by looking at it, I can clearly see that we had some kind of a downtrend structure. Okay, it's very, very clear. So if I add my regression channel there, it's typically showing me signs of bearish momentum. Okay, so ideally, how I would approach oil is I would want to look for a setup. At the moment, I'm not seeing any kind of a setup for oil, but you might want to monitor how it does at those levels there. Okay, these levels around here. Okay? So you also have a level right there. You might want to look for selling when you get a retracement. Okay, but oil is in a steady downtrend, and of course, this is a no-brainer. It has a lot to do with a typical slowdown we've been seeing with a lot of economies. So I'll be looking for a sell for oil, possibly towards that 72 level there. If we break above this level, then of course it's going to give us an opportunity for us to get a higher move, possibly to the upside. Okay, but for now, oil I think is a sell, and just monitor how it does at those levels there. Awesome. Any more questions, guys? Gold drops by $20 per ounce after China's People's Bank of China stopped buying gold to build its reserve after an 18-month stretch. All right. Yeah. So what has been pushing gold has been typically the demand from some central banks, including China Central Bank, a few other central banks, also like Netherlands. I think there's a snapshot, I remember, where we covered that in detail. We are saying that a lot of central banks have been raking up their gold reserves simply because of uncertainty. Okay, but also remember that this particular year that we are in, guys, there are so many elections. Elections are so many. We have elections happening in the UK for their prime minister. India just had elections this week. South Africa had elections I think was it last week. US has elections. European Parliament is having elections in the weekend. You know, elections are too many. So the central banks are really raking up on gold. But it's not only central banks, even retail investors are holding a lot of gold because of expected uncertainty with around the US election. So I still think, yes, China, yes, has held off its gold, stopped maybe its gold, purchases, but there's still potential signs that we should see some upside momentum there. But let's just keep an eye let's keep an eye out and see how things pan out. Awesome. So, any more questions? Any more questions there, guys? All right. Guys, if there are no more questions, then I think that's it from me. I wish you all amazing trading. If you do not have an account yet for trading, guys, I would recommend you to get FX Pesa's Premier account, which is the best in terms of spreads. The spreads are really good with a Premier account, and you can get spreads even as low as zero, close to zero spreads. USD right now on the Premier account with FX Pesa is giving a spread of about 1 pip. Okay. Now that I think is amazing. 1 pip means that you open a trade right now, your trade is going to go into profit as soon as, like, just at a snap of a finger. So I think that's amazing. Check the details in the bio and you can see how to proceed. The difference between a long and a short. A long is buying and a short is selling. That's the difference between a long and a short. When you say you're longing the market, you're buying the market. When you say you're shorting the market, you're selling the market, right? That's typically what that means. All right. Okay, guys, I wish you all amazing trading and we'll catch up soon. Cheers, guys.